My name is Honey. Honey, honey. Everyone calls me Honey. Honey, honey.
Hi everyone, you are all welcome to It's All About Love. You are here again to be with you today. My name is Hannah and Ray is here with us again.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much.
You are all welcome as well to this program. So it's a pleasure to really again to have you here today. Thank you. So Ray is going to give you beautiful inputs of love. So today, the subject for today is the law, the cross, and the love, and the cross of Christ in the pivot of history, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah. So today you are going to begin to address the revelation of the love of God through Christ. But first, some loose ends from last time for those who watched the previous program, so you have an idea what you spoke about. You spoke about holy innocence, isn't it? And a few other subjects. But today you are going to just make a resume, a quick resume about those topics. And so, Ray, would you like to add a comment about Mithras? Mithras, which we have discussed on previous sessions. For some of you may not know what this word means, Mithras, but Ray, can you explain to the viewers what that means?
Yes, well, why I'd like to mention this again about Mithras, a pagan god. We met last time on the 3rd of March here, and on the 8th of March, on BBC Radio 4, the thought for the day dealt with Mithras.
Oh yeah.
So I thought it'd be nice just to mention that. It was dealt with by an ordained lady, and she dealt with Mithras in terms of the archaeological interest. Of course, Mithras is a pre-Christian paganism, but it ran through the early days of the church into the early centuries after Christ. And the way I dealt with it on our two sessions was to explain that Mithraism has, I explained, according to my opinion, it has a pre-Christian origin which came through a perversion of an original pure revelation. That's the way I saw it, because I think it must have been something like that, although I don't know of any historical records, or probably talking about pre-flood times, I would suggest. But this came through to the post-flood period. And the way I dealt with it, I was trying to explain that Mithraism shouldn't be seen as any way a challenge to Christianity.
Yes.
But the way this lady dealt with it, she didn't really bring that out.
Okay.
As if it's just not an alternative, but I think she didn't assert the truth about Christ as opposed to Mithras. So I'd just like to make that point. But another thing she said was that Mithraism died out because it was mainly for men. You see, and I thought that was rather odd. I don't know if that's true. Maybe, I guess it must be some truth in it, because the lady was quite learned. But I think to say that it died out because it was mainly for men really misses the point.
Yeah.
That it was Mithraism was displaced by Christianity.
Wow.
Because when Christ came, we saw a fulfillment of things you can find in pre-Christian times. But when Christ came and and the events happened with the resurrection and so on from the tomb, it really brought out the real truth of what in Mithraism is rather a distortion of truth. So really Christianity, it didn't come in because Mithraism was just for men. It came in because it was God's will that it should supersede these pagan ideas, among other things, as well as, of course, being a fulfillment of all the Old Testament prophecies. So just thought I'd like to make those couple of points.
Thank you so much. I hope you viewers understood, for those who didn't know what that word meant. So we are going to mention something about last time again, when speaking of the Holy Innocents and the suffering in Ramah. At the time of Jesus' babyhood, we concluded with a brief discussion of suffering generally. You remember that?
Yes,
Yeah.
suffering
So,
in general, yes.
Yeah. Would you like to say a little bit more about that?
Yes,
As we mentioned,
I don't want to speak
parents
about
and
the Holy
children,
Innocents specifically, but this idea of suffering generally, it seems to me that it's because God's holy that there is suffering, because it's no exaggeration to say we're in a wicked world, and therefore we'd expect, if there's a holy God, we expect him to show that by judging wickedness in the world.
Yes.
And I believe we are seeing that. And the Bible said the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all unrighteousness. So we expect to see suffering. Now, we know that children suffer in this as well, which is the tragedy. And the children and the innocents, of course, they suffer because of the wicked.
Yes.
But the wicked suffer because of the wrath of God. Now, there are other forms of suffering, like earthquake, pandemics, and so on. And we could ask the question, why do these things happen? When we have things like earthquake, pandemics, storms, disasters, and so on, things of that kind, where it's not, you could say, a deliberate or direct act of God or of man. So why do these things happen? Now, those things, we tend to call them natural evil.
Yes, yeah.
And it's not the result, apparently, of a sentient being doing it, not man, not God. It's a view, of course, that atheists would accept. The atheist is the one who says no God, but the theists, which includes people like us in a general way, we believe in God. And for theists, they could ask the question, why do these things happen? If there's a God, why do people suffer earthquakes and so on?
Some people ask this so many
And
times.
the Bible gives a direct answer to this, and it may not be a welcome answer, but much of the Bible is not welcome.
Yes.
Because the truth often is not welcome.
Yes.
But I'll just read this to you,
Okay.
to the viewers, that this is the answer that God gives. And this is when the Israelites and Moses are on for the viewers' sake, we've got the Jordan River here, and on the east side, for the viewers, you've got Moses and the Israelites about to cross into the promised land. But Moses won't be with them. He's going to die on a mountain on the east side. And this is what God says to Moses.
Okay, tell us. Tell the viewers.
And the Lord said to Moses, behold, you are about to lie down with your fathers. He's going to die, in other words. And this people will arise, that's the Israelites, and play the harlot with the strange gods of the land, into the midst of which they are going, and will forsake me and break my covenant, which I have made with them. Then my anger will be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them and hide my face from them, and they shall be consumed, and many evils and troubles shall come upon them, so that they will say in that day, is it not because our God is not among us, that these evils have come upon us? But I will surely hide my face in that day, because of all the evil which they will do, for they will turn to other gods.
Oh, yeah.
So what God is saying there is, putting it very simply, you've rejected me, okay, I'll withdraw. And things go wrong.
Yes.
We see it today.
Yeah.
And it's a very distinct fulfillment of this in the subsequent days of the Judges, where the Israelites would turn away from God, indulge in paganism, they get invaded by a foreign power, everything's going wrong, they cry out to God, oh God help us. So God raised up a judge,
Yes.
and he helps them, he gives them
Yes.
success.
Yeah.
Then everything's okay for a while. But then after a few years, it's back to the old ways. It goes on like that.
Again.
And we are, of course, in that kind of situation today, I believe. It's often the case through history, I think, where God is shut out. Of course, today, when we say God is shut out, we're talking about the Lord Jesus Christ. Because we have a much fuller revelation of God today through Christ. So if we reject Jesus Christ, we can expect him to withdraw, and we will suffer. And that's what I would say we are experiencing today. Yeah. So that's from the book of Deuteronomy, in fact, that God said that.
Yeah, I feel that when you approach God, you feel more light to everything, and you are guided.
Yes.
And His wisdom is more around us, and you can see things more clearly, isn't it? So, but another part, Jesus said also that while you are in the world, you'll suffer, but be with me as well, because it will be better.
Yeah.
So doesn't mean that if you are in the world, you are not going to suffer. We'll
Yes,
suffer.
that's right. I am being a bit simplistic. I mean, of course, we all suffer one way or another.
Yes.
But I think when you find a whole nation suffering, it's because there's something wrong with that nation,
Yeah,
the way it's being
understand.
governed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope the viewers understood the point too, because if it is in general all nations suffering, there is something there. The government is doing something that is not right, or maybe not thinking right, not connecting with God, or other institutions in the nations. So that's why you see so much darkness in the world. So, but now I think it's enough for now, because you had just that small resume about the last week. Apologies, last session. And now we are going to talk about Easter. So we have just come through the time we call Easter, which is a beautiful time. Can you say briefly, Ray, how the date of Easter is set? And why do we call it Easter? What is the origin of the word Easter? I mean, many of you may know, but many of you may not know. So, Ray, could you explain the viewers, what this Easter means? What about the date, this date? Because normally you know that April normally is Easter time. When you think about April, you think about Easter, because Easter is always in April, tends to be always.
It tends to be mostly, yes.
Mostly.
Yeah.
I mean, always not sure, but I think mostly is April. I always remember April, Easter in April. So could you explain to the viewers?
Yes. Easter, really, it is the time of a full moon. Of course, Easter, it supersedes the Israelite Passover. And God said to the Israelites, when they come out of Egypt, he said, this is the beginning of your year. This is
Yes.
the first month of your year. And the beginning of a month is marked by a new moon. Then 14 days later, it's the full moon.
Okay.
And that was the time of the Passover,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the Israelites, they came out of Egypt. It was at night, in fact, but in the light of a full moon, which I guess would have assisted them in their travels coming out of Egypt. So that's what sets the date for Easter, really. And so it can occur from late March right away through to late April. A period of about a month, because that's the lunar cycle, a month,
Yeah.
you see.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, we don't celebrate the Easter at the time of a full moon, but we have a Sunday, because
Yes.
the original Passover would have been the 14th day of the month, whatever day of the week it was. It would have been a Sabbath.
14, yeah.
It would have been the
But
14th,
April.
you see.
Yeah.
But we always have it on the Sunday following, as I understand it. So.
Mm.
So that's why we have Easter this time of year. It is the beginning of the Jewish year.
Yes.
Now, with regard to the name, two learned sources I've
Easter.
looked up about this. One of them in the Encyclopedia Britannica, it says that Easter is derived from or come through the old High German word Eastarum or Easterum. It's spelled Oestarum, Easterum, and which sounds like Easter, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
Another source comes from a man called the Venerable Bede. Now, Bede, spelled B-E-D-E, he was, he's called the father of church history. He lived around from the 600s into the 700s AD. Around about the year 700ish he was living. And he says that the word Easter is derived from a pagan goddess, which I tend to go with. I tend to feel that's a better explanation, I think. But perhaps it's a mixture of two or
Yeah.
more.
And some viewers may wonder, well, if it comes from a pagan goddess, so why is related to Jesus?
Well,
That's why it's
yeah,
a
I
cross.
think again. I mean,
Or Jesus is...
no doubt that there was a lot of paganism in England in the early days of the Christian period. Without no doubt there was, but I don't think it matters that we use. I mean, you know, we use the 25th of December as
Yes.
Jesus' birthday,
Yes.
but that day has a pagan origin. But that doesn't matter.
Yes.
It's
Doesn't
what
matter.
happened that matters.
Yeah, yes, it is.
And so with Easter, the label doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's what that label means,
Yeah,
and
of
it
course.
means the time of the year when we think of Jesus dying on the cross, and of course the subsequent resurrection. That's what matters. It's the event, not the label. Yeah.
Yes, I can see.
Yeah.
But then you associate also the eggs, the buds coming from out, and probably some people relate this to Jesus as well. But you know, eggs is something is new, and Jesus as well dies, but he reborns too. Is the association there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
We'll come on to that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were talking about the goddess and Easter. So now, I could go and to ask you another question, Ray.
Yeah.
Can we now move on to the event of crucifixion? So because you're talking about the Jesus died on the cross and resurrected. Can you give a brief introduction to the crucifixion of the Lord Jesus Christ as seen outwardly?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is...
I think the Easter time, really, it's a time of remembrance. We remember, specifically remember the cross. And it's something which, it's not just something that the Christian church remembers, but it must be quite obvious to most of the world that we are remembering the crucifixion of Jesus. And the imagery of the cross, of course, and you know the crucifixes with the model of a man on the cross, that kind of thing, they're quite common, even worldwide. So everyone's got some idea about this event.
Yes.
But of course, with these crucifixes, they really are, we call them icons, and I don't doubt that some of them are used as sort of focuses of idolatry.
Yes.
So
some people associate
it's not something that I wouldn't carry a crucifix around with me, for example.
Yes.
I don't.
Many people I know.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But some people would do that.
Yeah.
And of course, others they resent crosses to the extent that they try and destroy them, or ban them altogether. I mean, last year, for example, it was brought to my attention through a Christian publication that in China, crosses were removed from tops of churches.
Wow.
In China, you see, because China does have this anti-Christian attitude.
Yeah.
Although in China, of course, there's a very live, active church,
Yes, they have.
but the authorities, they're really anti-Christian.
Then that's why in China we hear that they do many underground churches.
Yes.
Because there's so many people in China, millions of people, and so many people are Christians, but they can't say they are Christians because of fear of the government, isn't it?
Yeah, I had a communication from someone in that part of the world just the past week or so. He was saying that from his country, if you go across the border to China and pray the Lord's Prayer, you could be in trouble.
Wow.
You
Just
see,
for that.
this is a first-hand witness that was passed on to me. So this is what does happen. Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, in this country, we're very fortunate here.
Yes.
So far, we're not really heavily persecuted for our faith.
No.
It might come, but at the moment, we're blessed with the freedom to speak about
yeah,
these things.
of course, but you imagine we were like them in China and other countries in the world,
Yeah.
like not wanting to hear any religions, just Christianity. Would be that fair? So isn't it? Because see the freedom we have comparing with them,
Yeah.
and the acceptance as well. So I think for now we can do a small break because you are going to do the second part.
Yeah. Can I just make one point?
Yeah,
Whatever people think about the cross, the fact is that it is the pivot of history.
Yes.
It's a center point of the whole of the history of life on earth, from the first man, Adam, all the way to the future. It is the central point of history, and this is very important we get this point, because we will see how it all works out in the end, because it's leading up to God's revelation of himself. Okay?
Oh, wow.
So we could leave it at that for now, yeah.
Wonderful. That's why one of the main topic for today is
Yeah.
about crucifixion, about Easter, about the period of the story of history. So that's why thank you so much for ending this part with this sentence, and thank you so much for watching us, for listening to us, and I hope that you took something from this beautiful explanations, raised explanations of the crucifixion of love and the cross. Thank you again. Thank you for watching us, and see you in the second part.